Hi friends, a very good evening and thank you for joining in. Could you please confirm in the chat window if everything is working as expected so that we can get started with today's session in about 5 minutes? Am I visible, audible? Today is a very slightly different type of session as compared to our regular ones. Okay, so I can see myself on my phone, so I don't see a hiccup in the feedback loop. Hey, good evening, folks. Okay, our team has also joined, so I think things are looking good. So somebody is asking a video about revision. So there is already a video on our channel, right, which is how to actually prepare for GATE, right, for GATE 2022 and score 55 plus marks. In that, we do cover revision as part of the whole plan itself, right? So that's something that's already there. So somebody says, Mallikarjun says, GATE or semester exams. Come on, if you don't have an undergraduate degree, nobody's going to give you an admission to a master's degree. So you better write your semester and exams well, right? So please don't ignore them, because if you fail, you don't have an undergraduate degree and there is no point of even getting All India rank 1 if you don't have the BTech degree or the bachelor's degree. Again, BTech or MCA, whatever it is, right? So please don't take your semester exams lightly. Put in some effort. Of course, it's a trade-off, but you have to be careful with it not to fail. So Gohil says a video on courses for MTech, which is better and else. Again, it's very specific, Gohil. That's why we have avoided such a discussion, because it depends on what a student wants to learn. We don't want to give a biased opinion from our vantage point or viewpoint, right? So for example, when I was a student, I was very clear that I wanted to learn AI, machine learning, etc. after my undergrad. So IISc was a very clear choice for me, and I was also considering going into research, or at least research-centric roles. So it depends a lot on what the priority of the student is, right? So the institute depends a lot on those parameters, obviously. And of course, people who want jobs, placements are an important criteria. People who want to go on to research careers, that's another topic. People who want to go into, let's say, go on to do PhDs, there are other universities which are better. So it's a very specific choice. We can't generalize it and say, hey, this is the order that you should take. And that's unfair even to the institutions and also students. I have filled the PG program, but I haven't got grade card. Neil, you won't get a grade card, right? So once you fill in the application for the diploma program and pay the 300 rupee application fee, all of your details will be verified. It will be reviewed by the admission panel, and then you'll get a confirmation of the admission or not. It's not an automatic admission, right? Because all of your certificates need to be verified, and since there are limited seats, we'll only be able to admit the best of students based on the admission guidelines at UOH and based on the admission panel at UOH. So if there is any question, you can always reach out to us over phone. So somebody is asking, is backtracking important for interviews? Yes. If you're a CS student, you're expected to know the basic concept of backtracking. Right? It's a simple concept. It's not some rocket science. You go through a path, think of it like a tree traversal, right? I mean, that's the easiest way to think of backtracking. You go down a path, and if you don't find a solution somewhere, you backtrack, go to the roots, go to the parent nodes and choose another subtree. That's the simplest way of thinking about backtracking in general. I'll answer some general questions for a few minutes and then go into the actual topics I wanted to cover. Just to be clear here, this discussion is not a problem-solving discussion. Just wanted to make that clear. This is mostly about giving you some guidelines about how to better prepare for software engineering related interviews, right? So because we've already finished all of data structures and algorithms, there are some fundamental differences between GATE and interviews. What are some of the aspects that you can focus on? That will be the objective here. So getting demotivated after scoring low marks in practice tests, 40 to 60%. Tejas, that's perfectly all right. If you're scoring 40% to 60% marks, sorry, just give me a second. So if you're scoring 40 to 60% marks in the practice tests, you're on a good track. Just make sure that you debug the mistakes in the other questions that you did not get correctly. And I mean, we have seen a lot of toppers who were in the similar range in the previous years. So that's something that you don't have to get demotivated with, to be honest with you. How to handle placements plus gate? Manoj, very nice question. Anyway, let's start it anyway. It's 7 p.m. So I'll answer some of these questions also in between. We don't have any problems today, just to be clear. So one suggestion that I would give is, in general, it depends on which year of undergraduate studies you're in. Ideally, in your first and second year, you should learn to become a good programmer. That, again, if you're a CS student or even if you're a non-CS student, because programming is so central to all fields of engineering today. So the first and second year is where you should focus mostly on building your core programming proficiency, in case you have not done that, right? If you're preparing for GATE parallelly to this, my suggestion is try and spend at least a couple of hours additional to GATE preparation on actually solving at least 3 to 4 programming problems. The programming problems need not be hard. You could start with easy problems, because if you've built that problem solving mindset with the GATE preparation, and if you have the strong foundations from the GATE preparation of data structures, algorithms, pick any programming language of your choice. C, C++, Java, Python, you name it, JavaScript, doesn't matter. Pick the programming language of your choice. Try to write code, right, for about 3 to 4 problems. If you do it consistently, I think the challenge there is consistency, just like in GATE prep. Try and solve 3 problems every day. Within 3 months, you've almost solved 300 problems. Start with easy problems and graduate to medium, maybe a few hard problems. That's the standard path. Again, nobody becomes a good programmer overnight. Even when I was in college days, the way I built programming proficiency is by solving 2 to 3 problems every day consistently. Again, take up a problem, write the code, handle all boundary cases, all of that gracefully. That's the only way. Again, some people might have what is coding? What is all this programming, problem solving, etc. in interviews? It is basically testing 2, 3 things. 1, are you a good problem solver? Very simple question. Because if you have good problem solving skills are often called as transferable skills, which means if you're good in problem solving in one topic, if you learn the foundations of the other topic, you can translate that foundational problem solving skills. Some people ask us, why do we have aptitude rounds in some companies, including large product-based companies, a lot of startups and a lot of services companies? The aptitude round is primarily to see, hey, do you have problem solving skills or not? That's all. Because the mathematics that is involved in most aptitude questions is something that you learned in your high school, right, before your 10th grade. So the challenge here is, okay, using all the math that you learned in your 6th to 10th grade, can you solve mathematical problems? Do you have the problem solving mindset? If you took a look at even GATE, right, or if you look at CAT for that matter, even civil services right now have a general aptitude round. And the objective there is to see, do you have problem solving skills? That's the fundamental thing that they're trying to measure. Again, it is common across, it's a very well studied thing that if you can solve simple aptitude problems, and if you know the foundations of other or the basics of other topics, you can pick up new stuff. That's why almost every major company has some form of aptitude round. Again, there are companies like Amazons and Googles of the world which may say, hey, we don't care about aptitude round because we anyway test your problem solving skills through coding. So at top product based companies, they're fundamentally looking at only 3, 4 things. They're saying, hey, do you have good problem solving skills? And do you have the foundations of programming, data structures, algorithms, time complexity, etc.? Again, the questions that they ask often are not very hard. A lot of students think that they're very hard, but they typically come from like 10, 15 topics. Most of the questions, I'm not talking about all the questions, there are only 10, 15 types of problems. Broadly speaking, again, 10, 15 or 15, 20 types of problems will cover 90% of the questions that are often asked in interviews. For example, in graph theory, you're often asked BFS and DFS based questions. You're seldom asked, very rarely you're asked questions about all pair shortest path or something like that. Very rarely. I'm not saying they're not asked, but rarely. It's mostly some traversal based mechanism because you're expected to do the foundational traversals, right? So again, recursion, DP, right? They're fundamental stuff. They're not very rocket science or hard stuff for an undergrad CS student. So the idea there is, okay, can somebody solve good problems in these 20, 30, roughly about 20 types of problems? Do they have basic CS knowledge? Again, they're not looking for all the subjects. Some companies might ask you in the interview, a question about semaphore or DB indexing a little here and there, but that's never the focus. 90% of your success will depend on programming, data structures, and algorithms. That's it, right? So that's what is given 90% weightage also. The rest of the 10%, there is some additional weightage. For example, if you have a good project, right, that will help you stand out from the crowd, stand out and impress the interviewer, especially the senior interviewers in the later stages of the interview. But if you have brilliant projects, but if you can't write simple DP or simple graph-based algorithm, you will not even clear the first few rounds, right? So for most software engineering roles, that is almost more or less mandatory. Being able to write clean code, handle boundary cases, write simple functions, right? Again, the code often is not about some complex stuff. Again, as I've seen in the industry, the hardness of questions has reduced in most technical interviews, even at the top product-based companies in the last 10 years. It has reduced significantly. There are fewer and fewer interviews where DP is asked nowadays. People are asking simpler questions, but asking the interviewees to write actual code in a code editor, right? And what they're looking for is, can you handle all the boundary cases? And they're often not looking for the best, most optimal code. They're saying, okay, if it's reasonably good, let's go ahead with it, right? So let me cover some of these points. I'll come back to the questions. So there are a bunch of topics I wanted to cover. So I already mentioned about programming, data structures, algorithms being the most important one. Then I talked about why aptitude rounds are there, because they're easy. They're extremely easy. There are literally millions of aptitude questions that you can be asked from, right? So a lot of companies, again, some banking and financial firms, even top product-based financial firms do use these aptitude tests. Not everybody does it, but some companies do, especially a lot of services companies do that. Again, what a recruiter is looking for at both services-based companies, startups, and top product-based companies is, do you have the problem-solving skills? So there are 3-4 skills that they're looking for. Can you solve simple problems? Do you know programming in a modern programming language? Can you actually write code? Can you handle all the boundary cases? Do you know space and time complexity? Can you use the right data structure or the appropriate algorithmic strategy, whether it's dynamic programming, recursion, backtracking, whatever it is, right? Can you use the appropriate strategy to answer the question? That's all they're looking for. Again, there might be one interview where somebody might say, hey, what is your favorite subject? And somebody might say, I know CN. Then they might say, hey, how does video chat work? Right? Suppose you're doing a video chat on Skype or Google Hangouts or whatever it is, right? How does that work? Okay, so those questions could be there, but they're typically at the very end. They're typically in the last round of interview or the last 2 rounds. And some of these questions could also be based on your project. So making a good portfolio of projects, simple projects, they need not be rocket science, but these projects will help you stand out from the crowd because more and more people are getting better at problem solving through practice. I've seen people even from smaller engineering colleges. This is happening more and more, and I'm very happy about it. That more and more students from smaller engineering colleges are building their programming proficiency from the very first year because they understand that it is the most important skill they should build during their undergraduate days, right? So they build it from the very first year, and a lot of academic institutions and colleges are also encouraging that. That's the best part. Then they keep going through these cycles. By the time they're in the final year, they're so good that they can crack interviews at companies like Amazon through these coding platforms. Right? That's superb. I mean, that's what it should be, right? So problem solving is at the very core of it. Having good portfolio of projects will help you stand out. Again, in many of these interviews, students always overthink sometimes, and they're looking for the best time complexity or the best space complexity. The interviewer is okay. I mean, don't do fully brute force, but very often when somebody asks a question, suppose we are discussing a question, right? So let's assume, simple question. How do you join 2 tables? You have 2 tables, not sorted. How do you join them? How do you implement a join in SQL? Simple stuff. Right? Somebody might do a simple brute force type of thing. I would say that's okay. What is the space and time complexity of it? Can you improve it somehow? Okay, can you do a trade-off between space and time? Again, this is not a hard question. It's a simple question, but if you think through it, you can use data structures like hash tables a little smartly, right? So there are many solutions to this. Of course, this problem can be made very complex also. I would say, hey, what if your data doesn't fit into RAM? What if your data doesn't fit on disk? Those are variations of questions that are typically asked for more experienced engineers, not at a fresher level, right? At a fresher level, can you just implement this? If you give me a reasonable solution, I'll say, okay, let's write the code. I'm telling you, a lot of students can arrive at a reasonable solution to this problem, but they can't actually write reasonably working code handling all the boundary cases. That's the biggest problem, right? So that's something. So the only way you become a good programmer is through practice. There is no escaping that fact. Probably in my undergrad days, I'm sure I would have written similar programs, because the way when I was younger, we did not have all of these coding platforms. There was Topcoder for sure, but I was more keen on writing the code for the assignment, for the exercise problems in CLRS. So after I actually read from CLRS in my coursework also, even though it was not the prescribed textbook, I knew that this was the best textbook in the world for data structures algorithms, and actually learned from it personally. Again, I went to a undergrad college where I was the first batch, so we hardly had any resources or good faculty to teach us. We mostly learned on our own. So I would take some of the exercise problems there and try to write the code in C, C++, whichever language that I was using it. I also wrote some in Java at that point, right? And what better practice than that, right? So just writing code is extremely, extremely important. And you don't always have to come up with the best solution. Even a reasonable solution, not a fully brute force, but even a reasonable solution, as long as you can implement it, handle boundary cases, I think you're in a good place. Now, a lot of people think, how do I improve my problem solving skills? That's a very good thing. So just like in GATE, again, problem solving is fundamental both to GATE and to placements. It's the same skill. Again, the problem solving level of questions that you get in services companies is lower than GATE, obviously. At startups, at some good startups, it's roughly at the GATE level. At product-based companies, the problem solving ability needs to be higher than GATE, right? So, but the syllabus for that is much smaller. It's just programming, data structures, algorithms. That's it, right? So your syllabus for GATE is vast, much more vast than the syllabus for most placements. But of course, the trade-off there is the syllabus is less for top product-based company placements, but the hardness of questions is more. But the problem-solving skills that you develop in GATE, they're the same. So a lot of students who crack GATE, if they just put in 2 to 3 months of effort and solve, let's say, 300, 400 problems, they can easily crack most interviews. For example, I'll give you a simple example. We conduct coding boot camps at Indian Institute of Science, both for CSE students and for non-CSE students. All of these students have basic problem solving skills, and they can pick up programming, they can start solving these good problems, even harder problems, in anywhere from 45 to 90 days, because they have the fundamental problem solving mindset. Even people who come from physics background or math background, who have never coded in their life, within 3 months, 90 to 100 days, they pick up and they can compete with CS folks on actual interviews like these, right? So I think the problem solving mindset is the most important thing. And you can think of, so whatever we have talked about how to improve problem solving for GATE, all of the strategies hold for placements also. But there are a couple of differences. In the case of placements, you have to write code. There is no escaping that fact. You have to write code. This is one of the most common mistakes. People read a question and say, hey, I will use a dictionary here or hash table. I will use a try here. I will use a heap here, and I'm done. No, that's not done. You've just told us a reasonably decent solution using good data structures. You haven't yet coded it. Coding is a completely different thing. A lot of people mess it up. So in addition to, after seeing the question, if you can apply some simple data structures to solve the question, next thing that you should always do is, you should always implement it. Handle all boundary cases, pass all test cases, right? That's equally important, if not the same. Now, again, there are multiple coding practice platforms, right? There is HackerEarth, there is HackerRank, there is Topcoder, there is LeetCode, all of this stuff. My favorite is LeetCode. I really like it as a platform because they have easy, medium, hard. They have a lot of publicly available, some freely available resources also. But it has been one of my favorite. Again, I also like others, but LeetCode is one of my favorite places to practice. That's what we recommend a lot of our students also. So you can start with easy problems on LeetCode, go to medium and go to harder. If you're solving easy questions, you're roughly solving like, just to give you a sense of it, right? The easy questions, if you can solve most of them, you're good with services companies. The medium, if you can solve, you're good with startups and also some product-based companies. If you really want to get into the top FANG-like companies, you should be able to solve most medium questions and at least some hard questions, because the hard questions are actually from actual interviews in these companies, right? So, I mean, that's a simple template there, right? So I hope, again, I'm trying to answer general questions also that students are asking, while also giving you a high-level overview. So I'll try to go between both of them. Okay, cool. These were some of the key points that I have. So let me just answer a few more questions. So one question here is from Deboshmita, who says, is STL allowed? STL is standard template library in C++. Yes. You're okay to use standard libraries, like Java has its own data structures, algorithms, basic implementations, Python has it. So you're most welcome to use those standard template libraries or data structure libraries. That's perfectly cool. So one of the students asks, do they ask coding problems for master's student? It doesn't matter if you're a bachelor's degree student, master's or a PhD. At most product-based companies, you have at least, even for machine learning rounds, you have at least one programming round. For software engineering roles, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even if you're a PhD in data structures algorithms, you will have coding rounds, because that's what you will do on day-to-day basis, right? I mean, I think even for research scientist roles, there are coding rounds if you come from a computational background or a computer science background. So that is mandatory. Okay, so let me try and answer some more questions. So is 12th class 60% criteria important in placements? I don't have 60% in my 12th grade. My 12th grade percentage is 59.8%. But no product-based company ever rejected me because of it. There were some services companies which rejected me for that. And anyway, I was not, like in my BTech final year, I was also the placement coordinator for my college. So I attended a bunch of, I had my gate rank, but I just attended some of these to accompany my friends. And some of these companies said, hey, you don't have 60%, so we can't. We said, okay, I don't care. I don't need it anyway. But no product-based company till date that I have worked at or that I have applied said, hey, you don't have 60% in your 12th class. It really doesn't matter if you have the skills. At least product-based companies don't care. Some services companies do. It's unfortunate, but like, yeah. I even argued with the HR at the services-based company. I said, hey, I have 59% in my 12th, but in my BTech till date, my percentage was 89.9%, close to 90%. So doesn't that count? Because I was a university topper all through. And they said, no, this is our HR guideline. I said, okay, I don't care. Cool. So Avinash says, TCS is hiring. Should I appear or focus on GATE? Please don't skip attending placements. We strongly recommend all students, whatever companies you're getting to your campus, please don't skip placements, because what if you don't get a good GATE rank? Again, GATE, if you're a general category student, in the top universities, there are fewer seats. On that day, you might fall sick, you might have made silly mistakes, whatever it is. Please don't skip placements. Sit in your placements, keep a placement offer handy. You may not join. Even when I had GATE rank in my third year, remember I already had a GATE rank in my third year, right? Even then in my final year, I sat down in placements. I had a couple of offers in my hand, even though I already had a GATE rank of 178 or 176. Of course, my final year GATE rank was significantly better, but still don't skip it. Sit for placements. Have that offer letter. You don't know how things might work out. Have it. You might end up not joining. That's perfectly okay. But have an offer letter. So Suman says, I got an offer of admission in NIT Roorkee. Is it good? Please join. It's one of the top NITs for sure. Please join. Please try to be in the top 5% or 10% of your class at Roorkee, because then there is no difference. I have friends from NIT Roorkee who are working in Google Mountain View, right? Because they have the right skills. So you're beyond a certain point. Like nobody today asks me, where did I study my undergrad or grad school? If I have to apply for a real company. So go to NIT Roorkee, study hard for the 2 years of your masters, learn solid skills, and there is no difference between you and somebody who goes to IIT Bombay or IISc, because all the top companies come there for placement also. Right? So if you can crack it at NIT Roorkee, you can also crack it at IIT Bombay and vice versa. Cool. So somebody is asking a question about masters through GATE at NUS, NTU, etc. So there is a little bit of confusion because of COVID. Some of these universities are not clear whether they would take Indian students through GATE or not because of various restrictions. But we will try and do it probably next year as soon as COVID reduces. And there is an official statement from some of these Singaporean universities. So this is a nice question from Jayashri, who is how to prepare for GATE and CSC, GATE, CSC, and for FANG companies in third year. Simple. In your third year, solve 500 programming problems from lead code. Do maybe 100, 150 easy, 100, 150 medium, rest everything hard. That's it, simple. Solve them. When I say solve them, there is a very fundamental mistake that a lot of students do. When I say solve them, read the question. A lot of students think for 10 minutes and they say, hey, I'm not getting it, let me see the solution. No, that's not what is called solving. Because you're not building your problem solving skills then, right? Read the problem, try and come up with a brute force solution. Think of all the data structures you know and ask yourself, which data structure can I use here? The most important skill when you're solving a problem is map it to something that you already know. That is the most important thing. Problem solving is mostly that mapping, if you think about it. It's mapping a new problem to a type of problem that you already know well. Suppose if somebody gives you a problem, right? Think of all the data structures that might help you solve this problem better. Or think of all the algorithmic strategies, whether it's recursion, whether it's backtracking, whether it's DP, right? Whether it's greedy. Think of each of these strategies that can help you solve that problem, or iterative algorithm, whatever it is. And give it a good time. Give it half an hour to solve the problem. If you have solved the problem, even if you have solved brute force, write the code. Handle all boundary cases, number one. Number two, if you have not been able to solve, don't see the answer right away. Keep it, come back to that question after a few hours, maybe the next day. Struggle through that process. Try to tackle that question 2 to 3 times before you check out the solution. That is what is called constructively building your problem solving skills. I've seen people who say, hey, I've solved 500 questions on lead code, but when I ask them a simple programming question, they can't solve it. And I say, how did you solve 500 questions? They would simply say, hey, I saw the question, I struggled for 5-10 minutes, then I saw the solution. You're not building a problem solving skill set. It's like going to gym and not actually lifting weights. By just walking to the gym or running to the gym and coming back, you don't build muscle mass. You have to go and actually put in the struggle of lifting the muscle mass, right? Lifting weights, that's what I mean, to build muscle mass. Right? Just walking into the gym doesn't build body for you. That's true even for problem solving. Simple. Cool. So Jatin says how to select 400 to 500 good questions from various topics on lead code. You can go little random. That's okay. Just randomly choose some easy questions, solve them, randomly choose medium questions, because you'll never be able to solve the 10,000, 20,000 questions on lead code. It's not humanly possible. Think about it that way, right? Even if you randomly solve, again, it's not just about the volume of questions. It's about building that problem solving mindset. If you have struggled through and if you have built that problem solving skills through these 400, 500 problems, then given a new problem, you'll be able to solve it most likely, right? Like I have not solved most of the questions on lead code, but I've built the problem solving skill sets over the last 15, 20 years that I think if I take a little time, I would be able to solve a good chunk of them, maybe 80, 90% of them, if not all. Okay, so there are also some questions from GATE. I will take them, but let's focus more on the placements and things like that, because that's the objective of this discussion, right? Is it easier to crack product-based companies from IITs rather than off-campus? Yes, Mayuk, that's true. To some extent, it's true. It's not fully true also, because the questions and interviews are not different. They are the same. The very fact that you're an IIT means probably you've cracked IIT JEE or GATE, number one. Number two, you're working with other students and competing with them. That competitive spirit will kick in and it will force you to do better. Number two, companies do not set the bar lower if they go to an IIT or IISc. They might actually set the bar slightly higher. Because imagine if I am a recruiting manager, if I go to, let's say, IISc or IIT Bombay, let's say I want to hire 10 people. right? Now, if I see, let's say some 30 decent people, then I'll set the bar high because from those 30, I can only pick 10. So oftentimes the bar tends to get little risen higher when they go for placements because company might want to take only 10, right? So that might be the case in some cases. In the off-campus, it's like, okay, my team wants to hire 4 people, start applying, we'll conduct some exams and then we'll shortlist candidates and similar methods. The number of interviews also could be fewer in IITs, primarily because companies want to finish the interviewing cycle quickly because students have one company coming every day or parallelly and things like that, right? In an off-campus, it could take longer duration. But otherwise, the types of questions, there will be little difference. If anything, IITs or IISc, the level of questions is slightly harder because when I used to go to IISc or IITs for interviews, I used to set a slightly higher bar because these students should be better given that they've been given the best resources to learn. Cool. Yeah, CodeChef is also good. Perfectly all right. You can pick any platform, you won't go wrong. So placements are not easy anywhere. The competition might be slightly different between IISc and IIT Bombay, but IISc, IIT Bombay, the expectation is more or less the same. There is not much of a difference in terms of what a recruiter is looking for. Again, somebody is asking about taking our placements course before their placements. Again, a lot of students do it. We have hundreds of students who take our placement course or the interview prep course, even from IITs, NITs, IISc. Like I was just telling you, right? We conduct a coding boot camp, 1.5 month and a 3 month and I think 70-day boot camp at IISc for students, right? Again, that's where I studied. It's a university tie-up that we have. And similarly, we see a lot of students from other universities also just enrolling for an interview prep course because it gives them a clean path on how to prepare. We have about 200 solved problems in it, 300 practice problems. And for each problem we try, Satish and I, one of my co-founders, Satish and I, we have solved most of these questions. And we solve it the way you would see it in an actual interview setup. So yes, people do that. Other subjects for CSC placements, again, there are other subjects that, again, it will only pop up in the last few rounds, maybe last 1 round or last 2 rounds. Typically manager round, somebody might say, hey, what project have you done? Based on that, they might ask you a couple of questions about that topic. Like for example, you could encounter some questions in databases, SQL. Again, I forgot, when I say coding, I also mean SQL in that because SQL is so fundamental to most roles today in the world, right? So in databases, the most important thing will be SQL and a little bit of normalization, if you know that. Operating systems, semaphores, simple inter-process communication type of stuff. Then computer networks, how each of the protocols actually work in the real world. I mean, that's something that we anyway cover in our GATE course also. So I think that's the core essence of it. So do 12th and 12th marks or backlogs in UG affect placements? Nobody cares about it. Of course, if you have gone to IIT or IISc, nobody cares about it. And most of the universities, for most programs, they don't have a cutoff for your 10th and 12th class percentage. For some programs and some universities it's there, but for most of them it's not there. Like it doesn't really matter. Like I know somebody who has a backlog in their undergrad who works at Facebook Menlo Park as a senior engineer now, right? So he got a good rank in GATE, went into IISc. He had backlogs in undergrad, by the way, couple of backlogs or maybe one backlog if I recall. He went to IISc, then placements, he went to NVIDIA, then he went on to Facebook Menlo Park. So it doesn't matter in the long run. I got 7 CGPA in the first semester BTech. Does it affect my placements or GATE? No, don't worry too much about it. It really doesn't matter. I think you're saying 7 out of 10. Don't worry about it. It's the skills that will matter, folks. I think that's a fundamental misconception that you may have. It's the skills that will matter far more in the long run. Again, some companies might say, hey, even at IITs, IISc, they'll have some CGPA cutoff because they may not be able to interview everyone. Right? That's natural. So try and have a decent percentage of marks, but in the long run, it won't matter, to be honest with you, because I've been through that journey myself. So Prince says, I have offers from NIT Warangal and IIT Bangalore. Which should I take? Again, you can pick either of them and it will be perfectly all right. I mean, you can pick NIT Warangal because it's an older institute with a lot of with a good track record of placements in general. IIT Bangalore is also doing good. So you can pick either of them and you won't go wrong, right? Perfectly all right. Pick anything, whichever your favorite is, pick it up and things will be perfectly all right for you. Is off-campus FANG possible for ECE students? Again, let me give you a realistic picture, right? So if you are from a smaller engineering college, things have improved significantly over the last decade. Things were much, much harder earlier. If you come from a smaller engineering college, the typical paths that I've seen people take to FANG companies, okay? So one path is they start competing in these coding competitions because most FANG companies may not have off-campus for software engineering roles. They may have a few, but not too many, number one. And they get literally for every position they put in, because I've been a hiring manager, for every position you put in or you put in a job portal, you get let's say 1,000 applications. You can't interview 1,000 people. How do you shortlist them, right? So there are multiple strategies there. So some companies have started conducting these online tests. So that's one path. Again, not all. Some companies have started conducting these online screening tests. That's one path that you can take. Second, a lot of companies are looking at people who are performing well on platforms like HackerRank, etc., and directly shortlisting candidates from that and hiring. So if you come from a smaller engineering college, these coding platforms is one path for sure. It's a good path. Second, some companies, sometimes, not all the time, only sometimes, not too many times to be honest with you, they have these coding rounds, right, through which they shortlist candidates and go. The most often path, the path that I've seen most people take this path, which is like 90% of my colleagues who came from smaller engineering colleges who have not done a master's degree, they have come to companies like Amazon through this path. The path is very simple. After your BTech, go to a good startup, right? Preferably a product-based startup, and build a lot of expertise in the first 2 years. Build a lot of expertise. Become good at data structures, algorithms, build actual things. Build actual products. At a startup, right, there are very few people who have to build a lot of things, unlike a big company. So go to a good, even if it's a small product-based startup, look at the team. If the team is good, go interview with them. And these startups also have a slightly lower bar, and they're willing to take people from a wide variety of colleges because they're looking for good talent. They don't care where you come from, right? And they may not have the bandwidth, they may not have the resources to go for campus placements at top universities. So simply speaking, go into some of these good product-based companies, so product-based startups, work for 2 years, build strong foundational skills. In these 2 years, in addition to software, in addition to simple data structures, algorithms, programming, you also need to become very good at low-level design and high-level design. Simply, it's another term for object-oriented design, design patterns. How do you design a distributed system? All those stuff. The moment you do that, right, after 2 years of experience at a good product-based startup, having all these skills, you should be able to directly crack SDE2, Software Development Engineer 2 role at product-based companies. Most IITians or any of the top universities, they join a product-based company. Within 2 years, on average 2 years, they become SDE2s. You also can become SDE through the startup route. Some of the best engineers that I worked with who came from non-top tier universities across the world, not just in India, but across the world, this is the path that they've taken. Because building something concrete in a startup for a couple of years is one of the best proof that you can show to a company saying, hey, I have the right skills, guys. Okay. So again, 90% of my colleagues, most of their universities I've never heard of, right? Who came from smaller engineering colleges or universities, that's the path that they have taken. It works brilliantly well. Cool. So somebody says, should I take MTech in cyber security at IIT Kanpur? Again, Manish, my suggestion here is, if you're passionate about cyber security as a field, go for it, right? I mean, if you want to really build your career. At master's level, you should try and, while learning all the skills of programming, data structures, problem solving, all of that, you should try and gain expertise in one subfield. If cybersecurity as a field is something that you're passionate about, you should jump on the opportunity without doubt. But if you're not sure, if you're like, I don't know, then just go with the regular master's degree. You will figure that out by taking some of the courses in your first semester. Then you can choose what is the core area that you want to focus on in your second semester, third semester, and final semester. If you're not sure, don't jump onto it. If you're sure, go for it. Again, one other thing, if you're also concerned about placements, is to talk about how many companies actually come to IIT Kanpur for hiring cybersecurity experts or cybersecurity master for cybersecurity specific roles. That's another way to tally if there is a market demand for it. So somebody is asking about internships in good companies. Again, internships, broadly speaking, at top product-based companies, most internships are through campus internship drives because they take lesser effort from the hiring manager. Because of course, there are also companies which conduct a test. Like for example, all of our internships, we say, I don't care whether you come from Stanford or a small engineering college, write the exam, we will interview the top 20, 30 and we will hire. We don't care where you come from, right? A lot of larger companies also have started doing it, but less so. That's unfortunate, right? They could just create, like Google does this extensively. Google has this Google Code Jam, right? I think it's called Google Code Jam if I'm not wrong, right? So I think it's called Google Code Jam. I forgot what it's called now, but it was earlier called Google Code Jam. It's a competition open for everyone, right? So you do good at that, and that's it. They'll start interviewing you for various roles at Google. It's as simple as that, right? So some companies do that, but to be honest with you, for most product-based companies, because they don't have the bandwidth to interview so many candidates or test so many candidates, like BITS is very well known for having a terrific internship program. Like most companies go to BITS curriculum at undergraduate level, it's very good. The students are also very good. And companies just go, conduct an exam, take the top bunch of people, they come in for a 6-month internship. The curriculum also encourages 6-month internship at companies. And most of the students who do well get converted. Like I have hired people through that internship program. But if you come from a smaller engineering college, there may not be enough positions in product-based companies for that path. There is an alternative path which is through referrals. But that may not always work out, to be realistic, right? Because at the end of the day, the interview decision is still with the hiring manager. And the hiring manager, remember, I have been in those shoes. I used to spend almost 1/3 of my time interviewing candidates. And it's a nightmare because that means I'm taking so much time away from actually building products and solutions. That's the max capacity. And I don't have any more capacity, even though there may be thousands of really good students who apply or thousands of good engineers who apply who we may not be able to interview. That's a fundamental problem, right? So, that's a path. That's the other path. The alternative that I would suggest here is go apply to start good product-based startups. They'll be much more. Again, I think there is a big fundamental mistake that, hey, I have to be at a FANG company to be a good engineer. Bullshit. Okay? That's a big misconception. I have learned most engineering when I have done my own startups because there is nothing that beats that, number one. Or even in a large company when I was a smaller team. Again, don't look for going into a FANG company. Again, I'll tell you a path which is worse than going into a product-based startup. I've seen so many people who go to a FANG company, Google's, Microsoft's, all these companies. They go in. A lot of my friends also. I have a good chunk of friends who fall into that category. Right? They've spent 2 years there. Freshers, 2 years. Okay, they get promoted, something like that. They've built something. But since the team is so large, a lot of the frameworks are already built. They have not had opportunity to build things and learn more because the team is large. If the team is small, you'll get to learn a lot because it's like a startup within a larger company. That's why in all of my career, I've tried to go into teams which are small because that will increase my learning opportunity. In the long term, what you should prioritize for is not the company, but the learning opportunity. Again, this is me saying after seeing the industry for about 12 years now, right? That's what The learning opportunity is what you should maximize for, not the brand of the company always. Early in your career, I would say go to a startup, small team, build things. You will learn far more, or even if you get into a top product-based company, go into a smaller team. You will learn far more than a large team. That's the reality of it. So if you're asking about internships, apply to product-based startups. You will learn far more there in 6 months, and that internship can be a stepping stone to full-time roles in the same company or other product-based companies. Okay, cool. So very nice point that Bitu says, startups do not pay well as FANG. Very nice point. But are you looking for your money that you'll earn in the 10 years or your money that you'll make in the first year? I'll tell you, my friends who graduated from Indian Institute of Science, today they make, there are some, not all, there are some who make less than what some of my friends who have not gone to IISc make from my BTech college. Because they've only prioritized going to a large company. Again, the reality of it is, there is at the entry level, there is, even at a top product-based company, there is deadly competition as you go up. Right? Most people can't grow. Most people saturate at a X point of salary. Now, is that better? Again, what you'd ask here is, are you looking for salaries over a 10-year horizon? Are you looking for salaries in the first year? If you're looking for salaries in the first year, second year, I think you're short-sighted. You should always, like, I'll give you an example, right? I finished, I graduated from IISc, I went to Yahoo Labs. I think my gross compensation, not CTC, gross compensation was some 11 lakhs. This was in 2009, okay? I worked there for about 14-15 months, okay? I quit my job. And I got a little pay hike also because there was an annual review cycle. I quit my job. I went to a startup, right? I started my own startup. For 18 months, I took no salary, right? No salary. I literally spent all the money that I saved earlier. One of my friends and I started that. But the learning, so how much money did I make in those 18 months? Zero, right? I've actually lost money because I was living off my savings because I didn't want to ask my parents for money. So I was living off the savings that I've made for the last 1.5 years. Now, after that, our startup didn't work out. We built all beautiful technology, but we didn't know how to do marketing, sales, all of that stuff. It failed. I started interviewing for a bunch of companies. The salary that I got when I joined Amazon was significantly higher than all of my friends. I think it was the highest salary than what all of my friends got at that point of time, or at least 90% of my friends got at that point of time by not going through the startup path. Because when I interviewed at Amazon, they said, hey, what have you done? I said, this is what we have built. Of course, I didn't know marketing, sales, etc., but I bloody know engineering. This is what we built, like really cutting edge computer vision system in C++. And that showcased that I have much bigger skills. And I actually joined at a level above most of my peers and significantly higher salary than all of my peers. Same batch. Some of these people are much smarter than me. So the startup path that I took helped me build knowledge and a much harder learning path, right? So if I optimized for salary at that point, I would have not made as much salary. I optimized for the long term. So don't think of startups as a bad investment because they pay less. You should, early in your career, when you don't have family responsibilities, home loans and all of that stuff, try to maximize learning, because that is what will become, it'll exponentially pay off in the long run. I cannot tell you that enough, right? Again, a lot of my career growth at Amazon happened because of the startup. People used to say, hey, this guy built a startup, which means he must be able to take up much more serious work, right? So don't forget that fundamentals. Again, whether you're starting a startup or working at a startup, they're more or less the similar. Of course, the financial risk at working at a startup is lesser than starting a startup, okay? Okay, somebody saying, I got IIT B this year, just want to know how to explore which field you're interested. Whichever field I study, I find it interesting, sometimes ML, sometimes systems. Ashish, if you're not sure, I mean, that's a very interesting confusion to be in. That's a good confusion to be in. So if you've joined IIT Bombay, take all the subjects in the first semester. Amongst them, Pick one where you're spending your most time on. Suppose if you're spending more time on machine learning, that means you're enjoying it, right? So you have to make the decision, I think, by the second semester. I don't know exactly at IIT Bombay when you have to make the decision. At IISc, if I'm not wrong, I think we had to make the decision around second semester. Again, if you're not able to make a decision, do a coin toss, pick any one of them, you'll do good. Or look at those paths which have higher market demand if you're looking for a job. Right? Simple logic. So what do you think about MS by research at IIT Hyderabad? This is from Ramesh. It's a perfectly valid one. I think their duration is slightly longer. IIT Hyderabad MS by research is also perfectly all right. Their placements are good. It's typically recommended if you're looking for a PhD after that, but otherwise also it should be all right. Of course, it might have a slightly more research component than actual engineering component, but that's perfectly all right. You'll build all the skills. You'll have time to build it. In terms of jobs, it will not be a disadvantage in any way. Somebody saying, I'm not able to solve basic aptitude questions. Should I prepare for GATE? Very nice question, Adarsh. I think ask yourself, why are you not able to solve the basic aptitude question? Is it because you have lost touch of these problems? If that is the case, just revise these problems. There are so many problems online. Just revise them for a week or 10 days, maybe a month, and see if you're able to solve them. If it is because you have forgotten some of it because you have not solved it for 5-6 years, just recap them and see if you're able to solve it. If you're able to solve it, perfect. If you're even able to solve 50% of it, that's good. If you're not able to solve it, that means you have to put in, don't go for GATE right away. If you're not able to solve this, even after spending 1 month on simple aptitude problems, like 6th class, 7th class, 8th class, 9th class, 10th class, NCERT problems, those are your aptitude problems, no, mostly. If you're not able to solve them, you should take a book like R.S. Agarwal, standard textbooks for 6th to 10th graders, standard aptitude problems, spend a few months on it, build that basic problem solving skills, and then come to GATE. That's what I would recommend. So somebody is asking about IIT Lucknow. So Madhur, we were looking at IIT Lucknow recently. Their placements have been fairly decent, both for their BTech and MTech batch. We just got some data from IIT Lucknow, which we were collecting recently. So if you're not getting any other university, you can join them because their placements are decent. They're not the best, but they're comparable to like smaller, I should say, not the top NITs, but the next level of NITs. Right? So you could consider them seriously. First crack it and then you can make the decision. So the reason I'm suggesting against BITS is, again, my knowledge is limited. Please take it as is. BITS MTech programs, I've seen their curriculum. Their placement is also okayish. It's not comparable to their BTech programs. Their BTech programs are very good because they spend more time there. So I've not seen terrific numbers or terrific data for BITS MTech programs. Again, I may be wrong. Things may have changed in the last couple of years. So please correct me there. We'll also revisit them. But at least the last time I personally looked at it, I didn't find them too encouraging for the amount of price that you pay and time and effort that you put in. Okay. How to be good with system design? You don't have to worry right now. It's a topic that is at the next level after you get into a software engineering role. First, you have to build. I think I'm assuming most students here are like undergraduate students or people who are looking for software engineering 1 roles. You don't have to worry about system design for software engineering 1. But in case you want to look at it, there is something called design patterns. There's very nice good books. Just pick up good books by design. There are 3 steps that you can do. There are good books by design, good books on design patterns. Tackle them. Again, take up any system, right? Take a simple system like this. How do you do a okay, so let me go step by step. I'm sorry for jumping ahead of myself. I have so many things running in my head. First thing is read these standard textbooks called good textbooks about object-oriented design, or better still, design patterns. That will teach you object-oriented design. Then there are also a lot of good blogs about system design, right? Just go through them. Those are good blogs, and a lot of companies have their technical blogs. That is the best place to know high-level design actually. Because like for example, Netflix on their engineering blog, they tell about how they build their streaming system, right? So read from these actual good technical blogs written at some of the top engineering and science companies. That is one of the best places. Third. Fourth, pick up standard problems. Look at all the products that you use every day. Look at the streaming, right? How do you build a streaming system like this? What all technologies can you use? Simple question, right? So take some 20-30 services that you use every day, from Instagram, from Facebook, from YouTube Live, from let's say WhatsApp video chat, right? How do you solve these problems of products that you use every day? How do you scale them? The most important questions here is, how do you actually scale them to millions of users? So after you read the basics of design patterns, read basic high-level design. There are tons of good blogs out there. High Scalability used to be a very good blog long back. It's not being maintained now. But if you just Google search for high-level design, you'll get tons of brilliant blogs, GitHub articles and things like that. Go through them. Go through the technical blogs of good companies and solve 20 problems. What better way than that? Cool. One second. So there is some question. IIT Guwahati versus IIT Hyderabad versus IIT Roorkee. You can pick any of them. You won't go wrong with any of them, to be honest with you. All three of them are equally good. Just look at the program that you're getting admission into and just jump into it. If you have a specific preference, IIT Hyderabad is a very fast growing institute. They're doing very good. IIT Guwahati, Roorkee, they're the old institutes. So, but you won't go wrong in any of these three. Pick any one wherever you're getting, whichever is closer to your home probably, or whichever has more professors in the area that you want to pursue and specialize in your masters. Just go there. You won't be wrong in any of them. So Pawan says, I'm very nice, Pawan. So Pawan says, I'm able to build the logic, but I'm bad at implementing them. Simple solution, write code. Because I used to be like you. To be honest with you, at the end of my MTech first year, before our placements, I was very, very bad in coding because I've not written any code during my MTech. I've written only code in MATLAB, to be honest with you, and I've done a lot of fundamental math work. All of my courses in the first year were core math stuff. I've hardly written any code in my MTech first year. I used to write it in my BTech, but not in my MTech. So I've lost touch of that. So literally in the summer vacation between the first year and second year, my job was open up, and I almost lost touch of other programming languages. So I said, I will write code in C. If I have to implement a graph, I will implement it from scratch. So I started writing everything in C only for about 1 month, 30-35 days. That's it. You write like whole 8 hours to 10 hours every day. I would take up standard problems and I could get the logic very quickly. I would only type code, write code. That's it. You do it for 200 problems, you'll get comfortable with it. Simple as that. Only thing that you have to keep in mind, because you already have the logic, is handle boundary cases. That's the golden rule. That's it. So somebody says, I'm very bad at understanding the algorithm pseudocode. Why? If you know the concept, pseudocode is just translating that into if-else conditions, for loops and function calls, right? So probably the reason you're not comfortable in understanding the algorithm probably is because you don't know the concept. Then you have to go back and understand the core concepts in the first place, right? Cool. What if a third year student crack GATE with under 100 rank? Very good, that's possible. I've seen a lot of students who do that, by the way. When GATE was available both for third and final year students, people do crack that. So that's very good. Then you can spend your whole final year getting better at programming and things like that, and that's it. And then you could also you can use your GATE rank as a leverage and try and apply to all product-based startups and also good product-based companies and see if they give you an internship or a full-time role. Right? That's perfectly a valid path. Lead code, code chef. I prefer lead code personally. I don't do competitive programming because I don't have the bandwidth of time to do it. But I like the lead code format in general. They're easy questions, medium questions, hard questions, well organized. I have a personal lead code account, the paid account also. I like it personally. But yeah, you won't go wrong in either of them. So pick anything that you think is your favorite. My favorite is lead code, but everybody could have their own favorites. Cool. The interview prep course is still there. So for our GATE students, what we have done is we have taken most of the crux of the interview prep course, especially the problems and things like that. We have combined it with GATE because students are anyway preparing for GATE, and together we could price it at a lower price, right? So that's what we have done. So if you have already enrolled for our GATE course, we have the placement prep course in addition to GATE that you can enroll. Then you don't have to worry about the interview prep course and try to enroll for that separately. So somebody is asking a nice question. Should I go for unpaid internships in a growing product-based startup? Very nice question. If you don't have any other option, go for it. But even for this startup, ask them if they can pay for the work because you're actually putting in the effort, right? So if the work that you're going to do is very good, and if you don't have paid options, paid internships, perfectly all right, go ahead. You'll at least learn something. But make sure that you ask them what you're going to work on. Make sure you're going to do some good work during your internship days. That's very important because if you're not getting paid, you at least should get good skills and knowledge. So very nice. Somebody says, I got into IIT Guwahati this year. I'm more interested towards theoretical computer science. What is the scope for it, placement and research? Again, if you're looking for theoretical computer science like algorithms or Turing machines and things like that, I strongly recommend you plan for a PhD, right? So that's a clean path, because in academics, non-academic research, which is industry research, there might be a few teams which might do fundamental work on graphs and things like that, but they're very few. If you really want to do theoretical computer science, you should look for places like, for your PhD, you can go to obviously IISc, which is very strong in that theoretical computer science. You can also go to Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Chennai Mathematical Institute. These are all top universities in India. You should also look for top universities abroad for your PhD. During your IIT Guwahati days, try to publish at least one research paper. I mean, that way it will open up doors to a lot of international universities also. Web technologies and software engineering removed from GATE syllabus because they're not fundamental. That's the key, right? Actually, I was surprised that they were there for a few years in between. Actually, they're not fundamental to computer science. Again, I am in favor of having GATE syllabus, which is smaller, having slightly harder problems, and preferably having coding problems in the GATE examination. The way IIT Hyderabad did this year, right? I think that is a more appropriate format. Because whether you're a systems guy, whether you're a theory guy, whether you're a machine learning guy, whatever it is, you have to be good with programming. So removing some of these subjects might be okay, as long as the core subjects have been given enough focus on. I do not consider web technologies or software engineering to be core fundamental, at least at an undergraduate level, because those are stuff that you actually learn on the job. Cool. Is internship mandatory to get an admission IIT and IISc for MTech? No, not at all, not at all. They don't care about internships. You just need to get a good GATE rank, that's all. Okay, folks, with that, we'll wrap up for today. Again, this session is not a programming or a problem-solving specific session. I hope you learned a little from this. And again, we have the schedule for the next live sessions pinned at the top of the comments, so please check that. So since we have done all of data structures and algorithms publicly, from the next subject onwards, some sessions will be public, some sessions will be private. For all of our course enrolled students, we'll send you the link for the private sessions. For all of our non-course enrolled students, you can look at the schedule. You will have all the public sessions on YouTube, private sessions only for our course enrolled students. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.